The morning sun, still a bit sleepy itself, peeked through the tall office windows, painting stripes of light across the rows of desks. Inside, the usual morning dance was well underway. Keyboards clicked a soft rhythm, phones buzzed with hushed conversations, and the friendly hum of the coffee machine was a constant, comforting sound. This was the world of Liam and Thomas, two cogs in the big, busy machine of their workplace. Liam, with his neatly combed brown hair and a perpetually curious look in his blue eyes, was already at his desk, sorting through emails. He was one of those people who liked to get a head start, arriving a little earlier than most. His desk, unlike some others, was always tidy, a small stack of papers here, a pen pot there, everything in its place. He'd often be sipping a cup of herbal tea, not coffee, a small quirk that Thomas often teased him about. Thomas, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of morning energy. He had a bright, easy smile and a way of making everyone feel a little more cheerful. His dark, wavy hair always looked a bit windswept even indoors. He was the office's unofficial barista, not because it was his job, but because he loved making coffee for everyone. His desk, a few rows over from Liam's, was a cheerful mess of sticky notes and half-eaten granola bars. Their paths crossed countless times a day, mostly in the kitchen or by the water cooler. "Morning, Liam," Thomas would say, his voice warm and friendly, as he passed by with a stack of mugs. Liam would offer a small, polite smile in return, perhaps a nod. Their conversations were always light, about the weather, a funny email, or the latest office gossip. Nothing too deep, nothing too personal. Just the easy rhythm of colleagues who knew each other well enough to be comfortable, but not intimately. This particular morning, Thomas was already by the coffee machine, the rich smell of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. He was humming a little tune, a habit he had when he was happy. He carefully poured coffee into a mug, then added a splash of milk, just the way he knew Sarah from accounting liked it. He did this for many people, remembering their preferences without even thinking. Liam, having finished his initial email sweep, decided to stretch his legs. He walked towards the kitchen, intending to refill his water bottle. As he approached, he saw Thomas, his back to him, focus on the coffee machine. "Morning, Thomas," Liam said, his voice a little softer than the general office buzz. Thomas turned, a wide smile spreading across his face. "Morning, Liam. Just in time. Want a cup?" He gestured to the fresh pot. Liam hesitated for a moment. He rarely drank coffee, but the smell was inviting today. "Actually, maybe just a small one today," he replied, a hint of surprise in his own voice. Thomas's smile widened. "A rare treat. Coming right up." He picked up a clean mug, its ceramic cool to the touch, and began to pour. The stream of dark liquid swirled into the cup, filling it with warmth and a rich aroma. He added a tiny bit of sugar, remembering a casual comment Liam had made weeks ago about preferring it just slightly sweet if he ever did have coffee. It was a small detail, easily forgotten, but Thomas had tucked it away. He held out the mug, steam rising gently from its surface. Liam reached for it, his fingers brushing against the warm ceramic. It was a simple exchange, one that happened dozens of times in offices everywhere. A small, everyday gesture between colleagues. But this time it was different. The warm mug sat, waiting, in Thomas's outstretched hand. He held it just so, angled perfectly for Liam to take it. This wasn't just a simple handover. It was part of Thomas's daily ritual, a small act of kindness he extended to nearly everyone in the office. For Sarah, it was a latte with extra foam. For Mr. Henderson, a strong black coffee, no sugar. For Liam, usually it was nothing at all, as Liam preferred his quiet tea. But today was different. Thomas loved this part of his morning. It was a chance to connect, even for just a moment, with his colleagues before the real work began. He saw the flicker of surprise in Liam's blue eyes when he'd offered him coffee, and then the quiet acceptance. It made Thomas smile a little wider. It was nice to share this small pleasure with someone who usually kept to his own routines. The kitchen buzzed around them. The microwave dinged. Someone laughed a little too loudly at a joke, and the printer whirred to life in the corner. But for Thomas, standing there, holding out the warm mug, everything felt a little softer, a little calmer. He watched Liam's hand reach out, fingers long and careful to take the cup. This was how it always went. A quick exchange, a mumbled thank you, and then everyone went their separate ways, fueled by caffeine and ready for the day. Thomas found a quiet satisfaction in knowing he had contributed to that energy, that small spark of readiness. It was a gesture that cost him nothing but a few minutes of his time, yet seemed to brighten so many mornings. He saw Liam's fingers, neat and pale, approach the mug. The steam rose, carrying the inviting scent of roasted beans. Liam's eyes, usually focused and serious, softened slightly as he looked at the cup. It was clear he was still a bit surprised by his own choice, a small departure from his usual. Thomas found it endearing, this tiny moment of unexpectedness from Liam. Thomas had done this countless times. He'd handed over hundreds of mugs, felt the brief brush of fingertips against ceramic, or sometimes even against skin, as a colleague reached for their drink. It was a fleeting, unremarkable contact, quickly forgotten in the rush of the day. But today, as Liam's fingertips, cool at first, then warming against the mug, met his own, something shifted. It wasn't a clumsy touch or an accidental bump. It was a gentle meeting, a soft connection between their skin as Liam's hand curved around the mug, just as Thomas's was about to release it. Thomas felt the slight pressure of Liam's thumb against his, a fleeting warmth that spread up his arm. It was such a small thing, barely there, yet was enough to make Thomas pause. He felt a tiny spark, not of static electricity, but something else, something deeper and unexpected. It was like a little breath had been caught in the air, a whisper that only he could hear. His fingers, instead of letting go, held on a fraction of a second longer. He hadn't meant to. It was an impulse, a quiet, almost imperceptible decision made without thinking. Liam's eyes, which had been on the coffee, flickered up to Thomas's face. In that instant, the easy smile Thomas usually wore felt a little less easy, a little more fragile. The office noises, the clatter of spoons, the distant ring of a phone, all seemed to blur, becoming a soft, indistinct hum in the background. It was as if a quiet bubble had formed around them, a space where only they existed. Thomas didn't know why he hadn't let go. His hand just stayed there, firm but gentle, around the mug, with Liam's hand still resting against his. The warmth from the coffee seemed to spread, not just through the ceramic, but between their skin, a silent, growing heat. It was just a mug of coffee, a simple morning exchange. But in that moment, it felt like much, much more. The warm mug, filled with its dark, fragrant liquid, was a silent witness to the moment. Liam's fingers, usually so precise and controlled, reached out. His skin, cool from the air-conditioned office, met the warmth of the ceramic. But as his fingertips brushed against the mug, they also brushed against Thomas's hand. It wasn't a clumsy touch, no accidental jostle or quick withdrawal. It was soft, almost hesitant, a gentle meeting of skin. Liam felt the slight roughness of Thomas's palm, the warmth that was different from the mug's heat. It was a living warmth, a pulse of energy that sent a tiny, unexpected shiver up his arm. His fingers, instead of fully gripping the mug, paused, resting against Thomas's. Thomas, who was just about to let go, felt it too. The soft press of Liam's skin against his own. It was a sensation he knew well from countless similar exchanges, but this time, it felt different. A small jolt, like a tiny spark, went through him. His fingers, which should have released the cup, simply didn't. They stayed, firm and steady, holding the mug, holding Liam's hand in place. Liam's eyes, which had been on the inviting steam rising from the coffee, lifted slowly. They met Thomas's. In that moment, the usual easygoing smile on Thomas's face seemed to soften, to become something more open, more vulnerable. His dark eyes, usually sparkling with friendly mischief, were now still, focused entirely on Liam. A quiet hum filled the kitchen, but it seemed to fade, becoming a distant, unimportant backdrop. The clatter of spoons, the murmur of voices, the cheerful ding of the microwave, all of it receded, like sounds heard from underwater. All that remained was the warmth of the mug, the surprising heat of their joined hands, and the intense, sudden connection in their gaze. Liam felt a blush creep up his neck, a warmth that had nothing to do with the coffee. He usually kept a calm, collected front, but this unexpected touch, this lingering hold, made his heart beat a little faster. He didn't pull away. He couldn't. His hand, almost of its own accord, settled more fully against Thomas's, a silent acceptance of the unexpected connection. Thomas's grip didn't tighten, but it didn't loosen either. It was a steady, gentle hold, a silent question hanging in the air between them. He felt Liam's fingers, slender and cool, resting against his own, and a wave of warmth, deeper than the coffee's heat, spread through him. He saw the slight widening of Liam's blue eyes, the faint blush on his cheeks, and a strange, new feeling bloomed in his chest. It was a mix of surprise, wonder, and a quiet, undeniable pull. The air around them seemed to thicken, charged with unspoken words. It was just a coffee mug, just a touch of hands, but it felt like the whole world had narrowed down to this one small space, this one shared moment. The steam from the coffee continued to rise, a silent witness to their stillness. Neither of them spoke. There were no words needed. The gentle pressure of their hands, the silent conversation in their eyes, said more than any words could. It was a moment suspended in time, a tiny bubble of quiet intimacy in the midst of the busy office. Thomas, the always moving, always joking Thomas, was utterly still, his gaze locked with Liam's. And Liam, the reserved, methodical Liam, found himself unable to look away, caught in the unexpected warmth of Thomas's touch. The coffee, once the focus, was now merely an excuse, a warm anchor for their joined hands. The world outside their small bubble continued its frantic morning dance, but Liam and Thomas barely registered it. The steady rhythm of keyboards clicking, once a clear and present sound, now felt distant, like a faint drumming far away. The cheerful, sometimes irritating, ring of phones became a soft, muted chime, fading into the background. Even the gentle hiss and gurgle of the coffee machine, a sound Thomas usually found so comforting, seemed to quieten, turning into a low, almost forgotten whisper. It was as if an invisible wall had risen around them, absorbing all the normal office bustle. The bright fluorescent lights seemed to dim just for them, casting a softer glow on their faces. The bustling kitchen, filled with people grabbing breakfast and chatting about weekend plans, became a blurry tableau of movement, soundless and unimportant. Liam could no longer hear the loud laugh from Sarah at the water cooler, nor the sharp tap-tap-tap of Mr. Henderson's pen against his desk as he made notes. All those sounds, usually so much a part of his daily life, had simply melted away. He was aware only of the steady warmth of Thomas's hand, the gentle pressure, and the intense, searching look in Thomas's eyes. For Thomas, the world had truly shrunk. The usual morning chaos, which he normally navigated with an easy grace, was gone. The smell of toast, the clatter of cutlery, the friendly chatter, it all vanished, leaving only the soft scent of coffee from the mug and the faint, clean smell of Liam's skin. He saw the gentle rise and fall of Liam's chest, the slight widening of his pupils, and nothing else mattered. The office was a busy place, full of energy and noise. But in this one moment, it was as if someone had pressed a mute button on the entire scene. The hum of the air conditioning, the rustle of papers, the distant drone of the street traffic outside, all these regular sounds dissolved into an almost peaceful quiet. It was a silence that felt heavy and full, not empty. It was filled with the unspoken words between them, the shared surprise, and the growing sense of something new and special. Liam felt a strange mix of nervousness and wonder. He was usually so good at keeping his feelings tucked away, his emotions calm and controlled. But now, with Thomas's hand holding his and those dark, warm eyes looking into his own, he felt completely open, completely seen. It was a little scary, but also wonderfully thrilling. The quiet around them made this feeling even stronger, more important. It was like they were the only two people in the whole wide world. Thomas, who was never a loss for words, found himself utterly speechless. His mind, usually racing with thoughts and jokes, was completely blank except for the feeling of Liam's hand in his. He saw the slight tremble in Liam's fingers, the way his lips were parted just a tiny bit, and a tenderness he hadn't known he possessed swelled in his chest. The silence was not awkward, it was profound. It allowed every small detail to be amplified. The warmth of their touch, the unspoken questions in their eyes, the shared breath they seemed to take. The usual office buzz was replaced by the quiet beat of their own hearts, a soft, shared rhythm that echoed in the sudden stillness. It made their connection feel like a secret, a precious, fragile thing unfolding in plain sight, yet hidden by the sudden absence of noise. In that special quiet, the simple act of holding a coffee mug had become something entirely different, something truly unforgettable. The world had narrowed to a single point, the space between their eyes. When Liam's gaze finally lifted from their joined hands, it met Thomas's, and a shock went through him, soft yet profound. Thomas's eyes, usually bright with easy humor, were now deep and serious, holding a question Liam couldn't quite name. There was no teasing, no playful glint, just a steady, warm intensity that made Liam feel as though he was being seen, truly seen for the very first time. Liam's own eyes, usually calm and observant, now held a wide-eyed surprise. He hadn't expected this. Not the lingering touch, not the sudden quiet, and certainly not the depth he now saw reflected in Thomas's gaze. It was as if a hidden door had opened, revealing a room he never knew existed. A blush, faint but undeniable, crept up his cheeks, making his skin feel warm. He felt a fluttering in his chest, like a bird suddenly freed from its cage. Wonder bloomed within him, a soft, delicate flower unfolding in the quiet space between them. Thomas felt a similar rush of astonishment. He had known Liam for years as a colleague, a friendly face across the office, polite and reserved. But looking into Liam's blue eyes now, he saw a vulnerability he'd never glimpsed before. The surprise in them was clear, but beneath it, Thomas sensed a budding curiosity, a quiet acceptance of this strange, shared moment. Liam's usual controlled expression was gone, replaced by an open, almost bewildered look that tugged at something deep inside Thomas. A soft gasp, barely a breath, escaped Thomas's lips, but no sound came out. His mind raced, yet felt wonderfully empty at the same time. He was surprised, yes, by the sheer power of this simple eye contact, but also by the deep sense of wonder that filled him. It was like looking at a familiar painting and suddenly seeing colors and shapes he'd completely missed before, revealing a hidden beauty. In Liam's eyes, Thomas saw a reflection of his own confusion and the budding sense of something new. It was a mirror reflecting a question neither of them had dared to ask. The surprise was mutual, a silent understanding passing between them. Neither of them looked away. They were caught, held by an invisible thread woven from the unexpected touch and a shared gaze. Liam's heart pounded a little harder, a soft drum in the quiet. He wondered what Thomas was thinking, what he was seeing. Did Thomas feel this strange pull too? This sudden, undeniable connection that had bloomed from a simple coffee exchange? The wonder was almost overwhelming. It was a feeling he hadn't known he was missing until it arrived, full and bright. Thomas felt a tremor go through his own hand, a gentle vibration that he wasn't sure was his or Liam's. He saw the small worry lines between Liam's brows, the slight curve of his lips, and a wave of warmth spread through him. It wasn't just physical warmth from a mug. It was something else, something much more profound. It was the warmth of seeing another person, truly seeing them, and feeling a deep, quiet recognition. The moment stretched, long and tender, made precious by the silence. The usual office chatter was still a far-off hum, unable to break into their private world. Their eyes, locked in a silent conversation, spoke volumes. They spoke of surprise at the unexpected connection, of wonder at the feelings it stirred, and of a dawning realization that this simple morning gesture was quickly becoming something unforgettable. It was a look that promised a story just beginning to unfold. Their eyes, still locked, spoke a silent language. Below that intense gaze, their hands, still joined around the warm ceramic mug, began a quiet dance of their own. It wasn't a sudden movement, but a slow, almost imperceptible shift, making the connection deepen. Liam's thumb, which had been resting softly against Thomas's, moved just a tiny bit. It was a feather-light brush, not a press, but Thomas felt it keenly. It was like a question, soft and unspoken, a small gesture of curiosity. Instead of pulling away, Liam's fingers curled just a fraction more, his knuckles gently grazing Thomas's. This tiny movement was an answer, a quiet willingness to stay, to explore this new feeling. Thomas responded without thinking. His own thumb, which had been still, now moved in a slow, comforting circle against Liam's skin. It was a gentle, soothing motion, a silent reassurance that he wasn't letting go. Not yet. The warmth from the coffee mug was now fully shared between their palms, a steady, comforting heat that felt like a secret. His fingers, firm but tender, shifted slightly, adjusting their hold to make the connection feel more natural, more complete. Each small movement was like a tiny whisper, adding to the growing story between them. Liam felt the subtle pressure of Thomas's fingers against his, a firm kindness that made his own hand relax even more into the hold. He felt the light texture of Thomas's skin, the faint lines on his palm. It all felt incredibly real, incredibly present. His initial surprise began to melt into a softer feeling, a sense of quiet discovery. The steam from the coffee, once a simple visual, now felt like a soft cloud rising around their joined hands, a silent witness to this intimate exchange. The mug itself, the vessel for this unexpected connection, seemed to hum with a shared energy. Thomas's gaze never left Liam's eyes, but his focus was also deeply connected to their hands. He felt the subtle give in Liam's grip, the way Liam's fingers had unconsciously tightened just a little around his. It was a silent invitation, a quiet permission that made his heart swell with something akin to tenderness. He felt the delicate bones of Liam's fingers, the softness of his skin, and the touch became less about the mug and more about the person holding it with him. Liam found himself focusing on the small movements too. The way Thomas's index finger softly curved around his own. The slight pressure that wasn't demanding, but simply present. It was a language without words, a conversation played out through the gentle shifts of their hands. This wasn't just a touch anymore. It was an embrace, small and contained, but full of meaning. It was an unspoken promise that, for this moment, they were connected in a way neither had ever expected. The quiet of the office continued to wrap around them, making these small, gentle gestures feel incredibly significant. Every brush, every subtle shift was amplified, carrying a weight of unspoken emotion. It was in these tiny, careful movements that the meaning of their touch deepened, turning a simple coffee exchange into something profound. The coffee, once a mere drink, now felt like a warm, shared secret held between their hands, a vessel for a connection that was growing stronger with every soft, gentle touch. In that quiet bubble, with their hands still gently intertwined around the warm mug, something clicked inside both Liam and Thomas. It wasn't a loud sound, but a soft, clear whisper deep in their hearts. This wasn't just a friendly office moment anymore. This was something new, something special, something that hummed with a different kind of energy. Liam felt it first as a wave of warmth, not just from the coffee, but from Thomas's touch. It spread through him, chasing away the usual calm he kept around himself. He looked into Thomas's eyes and saw not just a colleague, but a person with a kind, deep gaze that seemed to reach right into his own feelings. He suddenly realized that the little jokes Thomas always made, the way he remembered everyone's coffee order, the bright smile he gave each morning, these weren't just friendly gestures. To Liam, they now felt like little acts of care, meant just for him too, even when he didn't drink coffee. A new feeling, gentle and sweet, began to bloom in his chest, a feeling he hadn't known he had for Thomas until this very moment. It was more than friendship. It was a quiet, strong pull. For Thomas, the realization hit him like a soft, warm light. He looked at Liam, at the slight blush on his cheeks, the surprise in his blue eyes, and felt a tenderness he hadn't known he could feel. He had always thought of Liam as smart, quiet, and a bit serious. But now, holding his hand, seeing him so openly, Thomas understood that there was so much more. He felt a deep desire to keep Liam safe, to make him smile, to explore the quiet corners of his mind. The easygoing friendship he felt for Liam had, in this single touch, changed into something deeper, something beautiful and new. It was a feeling that made his heart beat a little faster, a feeling of wanting to be closer, to share more than just coffee. Both men understood, without a single word being spoken, that this small touch had opened a door to feelings they hadn't known were there. It was a shared secret, a silent agreement that something important had just happened. The surprise on their faces slowly changed into a quiet wonder, a gentle acceptance of these new, tender feelings. Liam thought about all the times Thomas had made him laugh, the little moments when Thomas would stop by his desk just to ask how his day was going. Before, Liam had thought of them as just kind office chats. Now, he saw them differently, as tiny threads that had been weaving a connection between them all along, waiting for this moment to pull tight. He realized he wanted to know more about Thomas, not just as a colleague, but as a person. He wanted to see that easy smile up close, to hear that cheerful laugh more often, and to feel the warmth of his hand again. Thomas, too, felt a rush of understanding. He remembered how Liam would sometimes offer a rare, soft smile in return to his jokes, how he would listen carefully when Thomas talked about his weekend plans. These had seemed like small things, but now they felt like precious gifts. He realized he cared for Liam in a way that went beyond work. He wanted to understand the quiet thoughts behind Liam's calm eyes, to share more than just morning coffee. A strong, new feeling of affection and a hopeful excitement filled him. This simple touch, born from an everyday act, had peeled back layers of routine and politeness. It had shown them both a new truth, that beneath the surface of their colleague relationship lay a deeper, more profound connection waiting to be found. They both knew, in that quiet, unspoken moment, that their feelings for each other had changed, growing into something much more meaningful and real. The quiet between them felt like it could last forever, a fragile, beautiful bubble. But even the most magical moments must eventually yield to the everyday world. Slowly, gently, the spell began to lift. Thomas was the first to stir a tiny, almost imperceptible shift in his grip. It wasn't a letting go, not yet, but a gentle loosening, a silent acknowledgement that they couldn't stay like this forever. His thumb, which had been making soft circles on Liam's skin, paused, then slowly, reluctantly, moved away. Liam felt the change instantly, a faint cooling where Thomas's warmth had been. A tiny sigh, one he didn't even know he was holding, escaped him. His fingers, which had been curved comfortably around Thomas's, began to straighten, slowly easing their hold on the mug and on Thomas's hand. It was a parting that felt both necessary and deeply, quietly sad. Their hands separated with a soft, lingering slide of skin against skin. The ceramic mug, now fully in Liam's grasp, felt warm, almost hot, a tangible reminder of the shared moment. As their hands completely parted, a faint tingle remained on Liam's palm, a ghost of Thomas's touch. It was a warmth that sank deep, settling into his skin, a memory already taking root. Thomas felt a similar lingering sensation. The soft pressure of Liam's fingers, the delicate texture of his skin. It stayed with him, a phantom touch that made his hand feel strangely empty, yet also full of a new kind of awareness. He curled his fingers slightly, as if trying to recapture the warmth, the connection that had just been there. Their eyes, which had been locked in such a profound gaze, finally broke contact. It wasn't a harsh break, but a soft, slow drift. Thomas offered a small, shy smile, a softer version of his usual bright grin. Liam returned it, a rare, gentle smile that reached his eyes, a silent thank you, a quiet promise. The office sounds, which had been so far away, began to creep back in. The distant hum of the air conditioning grew a little louder. The faint clatter of a printer became clearer, and the murmur of voices slowly returned to its usual level. The invisible wall around them dissolved, and they were once again just two colleagues in a busy kitchen. But they weren't the same. Liam clutched the mug, feeling its warmth as a comforting weight in his hand. He walked back to his desk, the coffee's aroma now carrying a new meaning. Every step felt different. The feeling of Thomas's touch lingered, a subtle warmth on his skin, a soft imprint on his heart. He kept glancing at his hand, almost expecting to see a mark, a sign of the deep connection he had just felt. It was a ghost of a touch, yet it felt more real than anything else around him. Thomas watched Liam walk away, his gaze following him until Liam settled back at his desk. His own hand felt light, but his mind was anything but. The memory of Liam's touch, the surprise in his eyes, the shared warmth, it was all etched into him. He could still feel the gentle press of Liam's thumb, the soft curl of his fingers. It wasn't just a fleeting physical contact. It was a feeling that had settled deep within him, changing something fundamental. The simple act of handing over a coffee mug would never be simple again. The feeling of that touch would stay with him, a warm, silent echo, reminding him of the unexpected moment when everything had changed. With the mug now firmly in his hand, Liam turned and slowly walked back to his desk. The coffee, usually just a morning pick-me-up for others, felt like a precious cargo. Every step he took seemed lighter, yet also more thoughtful. The familiar path past cubicles and bustling colleagues felt brand new, as if he were seeing it for the first time through a slightly shimmering lens. He reached his tidy desk, the papers and pens still neatly arranged. He placed the warm mug down carefully, watching the steam curl upwards. He usually started his day with a quiet focus, diving into tasks with steady concentration. But today his mind felt like a flurry of butterflies. He tried to open an email, but his eyes kept drifting not to the screen, but to his hand, the one that had just touched Thomas. The warmth still lingered there, a ghost of a touch, a gentle hum beneath his skin. He glanced over, almost instinctively, towards Thomas's desk. Thomas was there, sorting through his usual cheerful mess of papers. But even from a distance, Liam could tell he wasn't quite the same. His movements seemed a little slower, a little less boisterous. He saw Thomas run a hand through his dark hair, a thoughtful gesture, and Liam felt a sudden, unexpected pang in his chest. Everything around Liam felt different. The air in the office, usually just cool and controlled, now felt charged with a subtle electricity. The sounds, once mere background noise, now seemed to carry a deeper meaning. Even the light from the windows, which had always been just light, now seemed to sparkle a little more brightly, hinting at something new and wonderful. Thomas, back at his own desk, felt a similar shift in his world. He sat down, but his usual morning energy seemed to have settled into a quiet hum. He looked at his hand, the one that had held Liam's, and a soft smile touched his lips. He could still feel the exact spot where Liam's thumb had rested, the gentle curve of his fingers. It was a sensation that had seeped into his very being. He tried to open his laptop, but his mind kept replaying the moment in the kitchen. Liam's blue eyes, wide with surprise, the blush on his cheeks, the quiet way their hands had settled together. He realized that all the casual jokes and friendly greetings he'd shared with Liam over the years now felt like mere whispers compared to the silent roar of that one touch. The tasks on his to-do list, usually a clear path for his day, now seemed less important. All he could think about was Liam, a few rows away, sipping the coffee he had poured. He wondered if Liam felt the same strange, new weight in his heart, the same unexpected lightness in his step. The office, which had always been a place of work, of routine, now felt like a stage for something much bigger. Their desks, usually just spots to do their jobs, now seemed like islands, separated by a sea of unspoken feelings, yet connected by an invisible bridge. Liam took a tentative sip of the coffee. It was warm, sweet, just as Thomas had made it. It tasted like comfort and like a secret. He realized he wasn't just drinking coffee. He was drinking in the memory of a touch, the promise of a feeling. His work, his emails, his reports, they all seemed to fade into the background. All that truly mattered was the quiet hum in his heart and the soft, lingering warmth on his hand. Thomas, meanwhile, found himself drumming his fingers lightly on his desk, a new rhythm. He looked up, his gaze finding Liam's desk across the room. He hoped Liam felt it too, this new, exciting difference. He knew, with a certainty that surprised him, that from this morning on, nothing would ever truly be the same. Their office, their routines, even their casual greetings, would forever carry the silent echo of that unforgettable touch. The workday began its usual march, but for Liam and Thomas, it was painted with new colors. The easy rhythm of morning tasks felt different, punctuated by small, silent moments that only they shared. Liam found himself constantly aware of Thomas. His eyes, usually fixed on his computer screen, would subtly drift. He'd catch Thomas looking his way too, a quick, soft glance that lasted just a second longer than a casual look should. When their eyes met across the office, it wasn't the fleeting nod of colleagues anymore. It was a recognition, a shared secret that passed between them, a silent question and a quiet answer. Later that morning, Thomas walked past Liam's desk to grab some papers from the printer. As he passed, his usual cheerful, "Morning, Liam," was replaced by a softer, almost whispered "morning." His hand, as it rested briefly on the edge of Liam's desk, lingered for just a moment, a tiny, almost invisible touch that sent a shiver through Liam. Liam felt a blush rise, but he managed a small, genuine smile in return. Thomas's smile back was not his usual wide, boisterous grin, but a gentle, tender curve of his lips, a private smile meant only for Liam. At lunchtime, Liam usually ate at his desk, but today he found himself walking towards the break room. Thomas was already there, chatting with Sarah, but when he saw Liam, his eyes lit up. "Hey, Liam, thought you might come today," he said, his voice a little softer, a little more directed at Liam than at Sarah. He even shifted slightly on the bench, making a tiny space next to him. Liam, feeling a pleasant warmth spread through him, took the unspoken invitation and sat down. Their knees brushed under the table for a moment, another small electric touch. Neither of them moved their legs away. Their conversation during lunch was light, about a new project, a funny news story, but under the surface, a different kind of talk was happening. Liam felt Thomas's gaze on him often, a warm, steady presence. When Liam told a small joke, Thomas laughed, a sound that seemed to hold more genuine warmth than usual. And when Thomas talked about his weekend plans, Liam found himself listening with a focus he hadn't realized he possessed, hanging on every word. In the afternoon, Liam had to go to Thomas's section to ask about a file. As he approached Thomas's desk, Thomas looked up, his face breaking into that soft, gentle smile. "Need something, Liam?" he asked, his voice low and kind. As Thomas handed him the file, their fingers brushed again, a brief, familiar warmth. This time, there was no lingering hold, but the memory of the morning's touch made this small contact feel just as powerful. Liam felt his heart give a little flutter. Throughout the day, these small moments piled up. The longer glances, the softer smiles, the quiet shifts in tone. Each one was a tiny thread, weaving a new pattern between them. The everyday gestures, once unremarkable, were now charged with a new meaning, a silent promise of something more. They were communicating without words, through the language of small touches and knowing looks. The office, once a place of routine, had become a landscape dotted with these secret, shared moments, making the day feel less like work and more like an unfolding story. By the time the afternoon sun began to dip, casting long shadows across the desks, the air between Liam and Thomas felt thick with unspoken feelings, a beautiful, quiet understanding. As the afternoon shadows grew long and the office lights began to hum more noticeably, the workday slowly wound down. Keyboards clicked less, conversations softened, and the gentle shuffle of people packing up their bags filled the air. For Liam and Thomas, the end of the day felt different, not just a release from tasks, but a gentle pull toward something new. Liam felt a familiar restlessness as 5 o'clock approached, but it wasn't the usual eagerness to escape work. Instead, it was a quiet excitement, a hopeful feeling buzzing under his skin. He carefully tidied his desk, putting away papers with a thoughtfulness he usually reserved for important documents. He stole a glance at Thomas's desk. Thomas was also packing up, his movements still carrying that quiet, thoughtful air he'd worn all day. As Liam stood to leave, he saw Thomas do the same. Their eyes met across the fading light of the office, and this time, the glance wasn't fleeting. It was a warm, steady look, full of unspoken questions and shared understanding. Liam offered a small, shy smile, and Thomas returned it, his usually bright eyes now soft and inviting. They both walked towards the exit, not together, but close enough that their paths seemed to naturally align. The chatter of other colleagues leaving work flowed around them, but it felt like background noise. All Liam could focus on was the steady rhythm of Thomas's steps beside him, the faint scent of his cologne, and the quiet electricity in the air between them. As they reached the main doors, Thomas paused, turning fully to Liam. "Liam," he said, his voice soft, a little lower than usual. "That coffee. I hope you enjoyed it." He didn't just ask about the coffee. His eyes were asking about much more. Liam felt a warmth spread through him, a pleasant flush on his cheeks. He met Thomas's gaze, his own blue eyes shining with a new, gentle honesty. "I did, Thomas," he replied, his voice a little shaky but firm. "It was really good. The best coffee I've had in a long time." He wanted to say more, to say thank you for holding my hand, or I felt it too, but the words caught in his throat. Thomas smiled, a genuine, tender smile that reached his eyes. "Good," he said, and the single word held a wealth of meaning. He paused for a moment longer, then, almost as an afterthought, added, "Maybe, tomorrow, another cup?" His tone was light, but his eyes held a clear invitation. Liam's heart did a little leap. "Yes," he said, a little too quickly, then softened his voice. "Yes, I like that very much." A comfortable silence settled between them, different from the earlier, intense quiet. This was a silence full of promise, of things yet to be explored. They walked out of the office building together, stepping into the cooler evening air. The city noises, the rush of traffic, the distant sirens, they were all back, but they couldn't dim the quiet glow that now existed between Liam and Thomas. As they reached the crosswalk, their hands, almost without conscious thought, brushed against each other. This time, it was a gentle, natural touch, a soft graze that lasted just a second, but it spoke volumes. It was a silent goodbye for now, and a promise of see you tomorrow. They parted ways at the street corner, each heading in a different direction. But as Liam walked home, he felt a lightness in his step, a quiet joy bubbling within him. The feeling of Thomas's hand, the memory of his soft smile, the promise of another coffee, it all stayed with him. He knew, with a certainty that thrilled him, that this was just the beginning. The small gesture of a shared coffee and the unexpected touch that followed had opened a door to a new connection, one that was just waiting to unfold into something truly unforgettable. He couldn't wait for tomorrow.